Can I just say something about Andrea?
Welcome back, everybody. Day 3 is in the books. It was a short one. Only a half day today. So what do we have here? I think it was 14 pages of notes, 15 and a half. So not really too much, but unlike our time on direct, which was largely, repetitive, a lot of talk about how did these posts make you feel. Today we had quite a bit of variety of topical stuff that got covered because most of our day was spent on cross-examination. So I'm going to get right into our recap for the day. Those of you on Fashion Watch. Alice was late today. She was late. She was like 15 minutes late. She came rushing in. I'm so sorry. I got stuck in back-to-back traffic. Sincere apologies. She, in her posh thing, but I mean, not really posh, but so anyway, she comes rushing in very late. So I didn't get like a super good look at the outfit, because of that. But it was another one of these skirts, right? These midi, modern contemporary kinds of skirts. This one was this white with blue stripe, like a denim grayish blue kind of stripe on it. There's like a couple different tones, and it was like this quilted pattern, like blocks, like they took blocks of similar white and blue stripes and quilted them together in a overall fabric, and then use that to make this asymmetrical midi skirt with this irregular hem. And she wore that with this like short sleeved cropped black puffer coat, and then under the coat was this just very cheap looking cotton, knit black, not quite a 3/4 length sleeve, but like a full down to the elbow sleeve shirt. just a knit shirt. So once again, like didn't really match the skirt at all. Wasn't very high quality. It did seem like now that like I'm kind of attuned to it, it did seem like she might have been wearing it backwards too. And I say that because just at one point, from where I was looking at her, I could see her kind of like from this sort of angle, like a 3/4 kind of angle, but from behind. And just the way it was sitting, it was very high on the front part of her neck and kind of very low on the back part of her neck. And it's just like normally, I don't know, normally it seems like things sit a little higher on their neck and a little lower in the front. So it just kind of looked like, possibly it was maybe turned around, but whatever. If it was, it wasn't super obvious. It wasn't like as bad as the blue and white striped one that looked like it was a V-neck. The shoes, I did get the message about the shoes. My apologies for forgetting about the shoes. So just to clarify too, yesterday she was wearing these black boots with kitten heels. Like the reason I've forgotten about the shoes is they've been pretty unremarkable. There's not really a whole lot to say about the shoes. So yesterday she was wearing these black boots with a kitten heel, and then today it was a black ankle boot, and I think it was a wedge. It was just it's a very unremarkable shoe. So that was Alice's fashion today. The hair, of course, is the same hair. Yo was in his navy blue. Once again, different navy blue. He's in a white shirt. I did notice he had French cuffs. I couldn't see the cuff lengths, but I could just tell by the shape. He was wearing French cuffs. And just another blue tie. So he's kind of sticking with this this navy blue simple elegance theme, blue on white on blue. They did the appearances today, and so the first day they did the appearances, Alice was very smiley, very stood up to greet the court, very smiley. The second day she did not stand up, and she was quite grim in her presentation. Today she stood back up again, and the court says, "Good morning, everybody," and she said, "Good morning." So just getting a little different attitude, perhaps a little attitude check every morning. So before we restarted with the cross, the judge wanted a time estimate from Janina. How much longer did she expect to spend? She estimated about an hour and a half, which is about what I had estimated yesterday. Maybe on the long end. So she started by taking us to the his testimony about the August 2nd hearing, the hearing for the permanent restraining order. And she asked, isn't it true that the court raised First Amendment, raised concerns about Alice's First Amendment rights? And Ioan said he didn't recall. So she asked if he would be refreshed by looking at the transcript. He said, yes, he would. So she hands him the transcript. And Alice is doing the arm over the chair, sitting back, arm over the chair thing at this point. And she's staring at Ioan now. She's staring at him. And so they're kind of going through it, and she wants to talk to him about it. Didn't the judge say? And so they have to stop that. The judge says you can't read it. It's not in evidence. Also, it's hearsay, and it's a colloquy before the hearing even started. It's not relevant. What this judge said doesn't matter. It's my findings that are going to matter. So Judge Convey making it clear right off the bat, this is like a no-go zone. I had made a little note in my margin, like, is Alice gonna raise a First Amendment defense now? I looked this up way back when Alice was criminally charged with violating the restraining order. Because any kind of restraining order that restricts you from speaking has the potential to interfere with your First Amendment rights, to be overbroad and to reach speech that you are legally allowed to engage in. And so that's always the risk with an order like this, is that it has to be very precisely tailored to make sure that it's only hitting the stuff that's either like strict conduct, it's conduct based and not based on the content of your speech, or it's only targeting stuff that is not constitutionally protected. So I was interested in this when she was criminally charged with the restraining order violation, because in some states, you could use that as a defense. You could come into court and say, this order, the reason why I violated it is because the order is invalid, and I can't be bound by it, and so I'm not guilty, and you have to dismiss it. And like, that would work if you could show it's an order that infringes on your constitutional rights legitimately. Other states say, no, you can't do that. Your obligation is to use the court process to challenge this order. If you think the order is illegal, you need to appeal it and you need to get it overturned. But as long as it's in effect, you have an obligation to follow it. So you could be criminally charged for violating it, even if it is potentially overbroad and violates the First Amendment. So I wanted to know what California is like. Would she be able to use a First Amendment defense? And I found that California is one of these states where you can raise a constitutional violation allegation at any time. You don't have to immediately go and challenge the order and abide by it if you lose. You can raise a First Amendment argument at any point, including at the point of being potentially charged with a crime. So I was like, I started thinking about that, because I'm like, how does that play in here? Does that even play in here? Does it play in here? Because, I mean, it might play into the order and the structure of the order and stuff like that. They certainly didn't brief it. It wasn't part of their brief. Like, you should deny the restraining order extension because of the First Amendment. Like, they didn't address that at all. So I don't really expect that. So this just all left me kind of, I don't know, a little scratching my head, like, what exactly are you doing here? And especially since the judge, he didn't take this well at all. I mean, when he's telling Janina what that judge says doesn't matter. And this wasn't even like, these weren't findings. These weren't in his order. The order is all that matters. This is just some conversation he's having before the hearing has even started. Like, why are you wasting our time with this? It's my opinion about this that's going to matter. So just right off the bat, Janina is kind of getting, okay, we'll move on. So I don't really know if there is any plan at all for the First Amendment. If there is, I mean, it seems awfully late in the day to be kind of getting to that, you know, for like the first time. But even if the judge like did have some concerns about First Amendment implications, I don't think it's going to overcome the distinction between punishing somebody for the content of their words or like restricting the content of their words versus your course of conduct. And that's how harassment in general tends to get past First Amendment concerns, is because it's really not focused on the content of the speech nearly as much as it's focused on the course of conduct. The content of the speech is really only important to the extent that it's making people feel, you know, fear, threatened, uneasy, concern for your physical safety, concern for your emotional, you know, safety, stuff like that. But it's more about like the repetition and the persistence of that than it is like if you just say one thing. Typically that's not going to support you know, a charge for harassment or a DVRO or something like that. So very interesting legal issue from my standpoint that has like always been implicated by this issue with the order. It got my attention very early on. But doesn't look like it's really going to be a play they're going to play. The kind of thing you definitely should have put in your trial brief if you were going to raise it. You know, give him some case law and stuff. It's kind of important to understand that kind of thing. But I'm not sure that even if it did, even if like the judge thinks there is a problem with the First Amendment here, I don't know that that would stop him from renewing it. I mean, he can always just potentially, you know, tweak the language or something like that. But I think the bigger issue has to do with just her defiance of a court order in general and the implications that that is going to have in terms of, one, Ioan and Bianca's safety and security, but then also the downstream implications that keep peeking their little heads up, dealing with the finances and the you know, custody stipulation and all of that type of thing. So the First Amendment just had a very quick appearance and burnout, and don't think we're gonna hear it again, but I guess we'll see. Maybe that's going to be part of Alice's testimony. We'll I'll be quite enthusiastic about that. Oh my God, remember how Amber Heard wanted to like bestow on herself the title of like the First Amendment protectress while she was trying to, you know, dox her critics on Twitter, and then shut out the courtrooms and seal everything because she doesn't realize that courtroom access is also protected by the First Amendment. Yeah, I could absolutely see Alice doing something like that. Alice in her mind has become a First Amendment advocate. So on his own motion, he said he invoked 352. It's 352. It's prejudicial. It's not relevant. I had to go and look up 352 because it came up yesterday, came up again today a few times. So I had to look and see what it was. I knew it was a California evidence rule, and it's just a rule that says the judge has discretion to exclude evidence, even if it's relevant, if he thinks it's more prejudicial than probative. So he's invoked that because he doesn't really think this has anything to do with anything. It's not valuable and it's wasting time. So get to the point. Get to the stuff that matters. So he told her that go to the orders or go to the factual findings. So they established that the court did allow Alice to post on social media about her family case if it does not harass or disturb the peace of the petitioners. Yeah, I mean, it's that qualifier that's the problem, isn't it? That's kind of the rub. That's kind of the rub. That's why they spent all that time talking about the impact of those posts and those communications and things like that. The judge then now kind of repeats that, you know, the order speaks for itself. The order is what controls. Nothing about what the judge said at the hearing is controlling. All we care about is the order. And so we go to the order now. Judge has made his point clear. So we go to the TRO first. Alice is now doing the plexiglass gaze. The plexiglass gaze, just briefly. She's doing this new thing the last couple days. I didn't see her do it the first day, but she's doing a new thing. And I don't really know how to describe this other than she just looks quite spacey. She looks spacey. She's doing this thing where her mouth just kind of like hangs open. And, you know, she's got the lips. She's got the issue with the lips. She's got like the 5 mil lips or whatever. And so but she just, the mouth is like hanging open and it's like she zones out. And then she'll, you know, and then she'll adjust. But she just seems quite spacey. So she's doing that, like she's not doing the plexiglass thing nearly as much as she was on day one. Makes me wonder if she's been watching or reading Tattle or anything like that. But she does still do it from time to time, and it seems to be like when she's in this kind of spacey mode, she like spaces out, staring at herself in the plexiglass. But then, you know, she'll kind of like adjust and or something will like catch her attention and she'll turn and do something else. So we go to the TRO, which does not prohibit Alice from commenting about about the family matter on social media, providing it's not harassment and disturbing the peace. Yes, we know that. We know that. But it's established. Good job, Janina. So then before the October 22 hearing, Ioan had filed a supplement to his application on July 25th, 27 pages. Janina has this marked. She wants to ask a lot of questions about it. And it was in this document that Ioan had requested that the order include language that restrained Alice from posting the communications between him and his children. And at the August 22 hearing, the judge had granted the request for that specific hearing. So then we go back to that text, that post that Alice did on, I don't remember if it was Twitter or Instagram, but where she posted Ella's texts with Ioan. And that post was made after the DVRO, after the TRO was issued, but before the DVRO was issued. So before this provision he had asked for in his July update was in effect. So good job, Janina. Like, she established that it was not in fact a violation of the TRO at the cost of reminding the court that she did that in the first place, like reminding the judge, this is the parenting decision that we're making, and we're asking you to, you know, not really hold that against her. I mean, yeah. Who does that? Who does that? Like, just the lack of regard for the children is really something to behold here. But she wants to, wants it to be clear. We can't find a violation based on that specific post. No, we can't find a violation. It's just an extremely poor taste. And it's why he needed to make that request in the first place. That was part of the factual predicate under those Ritchie factors. She establishes that his supplement, he included a declaration, he signed it under penalty of perjury. At the time, he believed it was all true and correct. And so then we go into his allegations from his renewal application, the one that was just filed last year to renew the application. And in that one, he alleged that Alice was verbally abusive in June of 2020, but he did not make this accusation back in February 2022 in his original DVRO petition. And there's a lot of so there's several of these issues that are raised. And during this, Ioan seems to have, when he was prepared for his testimony, he seems to have been prepared to be cautious about specifics, about things like dates and, what you did in what document or at what time or whatever, like not to kind of take their word for it. So there's a lot of, he doesn't recall the specifics as far as his answer. So in this one, he doesn't remember. In this one, he would have to look. So we spend time going to look through his original DVRO application. Joe, in the meantime, objects to this question as vague, but that is overruled. Neil, by the way, is there. Neil is there again. He just kind of like leaves the courtroom and comes back a couple times. Like he it's just a thing he does. I don't know if he's getting on the phone or whatever. But I had it in my notes that he left the room again, and there was another, both Alice and Janina are looking around to see what's going on. And then while Ioan is reading the application, the TRO application, Alice, there's Kleenex in front of her. So Alice grabs a Kleenex and she starts patting her forehead and her chin. So perhaps it is a little warm. It was not quite warm yet at that point, in my personal opinion. It did get quite warm today. I chose a terrible day to wear pleather and walk home. But this was hours before that was really any kind of issue. But seems that Alice was perhaps a bit warm. So after he reviewed it, he acknowledged it was correct. He did not allege the June abuse in his DVRO application. Then in the supplement, he also claimed that Alice was verbally abusive, but did not raise that in the original TRO application. And then he claimed in his renewal that Alice had physically assaulted him on July 14th of 2020. This was when he was right before he was leaving to Australia to film the last part of Harrow. It was when they had the blowout fight and the issue with offering the kids cocaine, which we'll get into. So he did not allege that in his original application. And the judge is confused for like the first part about what we're doing here, because she's just going back and forth between these different documents. But turn your attention to what's marked as 245 at pages 5 to 10. Now turn to exhibit 15, and so the judge is like not quite sure where she's going. So she's pointing out, you didn't claim physical assault in your original application, and the judge is like, well, but it's in the request for renewal. And so Janina explains, well, I understand that it's not in the application. It predated the request for the DVRO in 2022, but it wasn't in the request. And that went to both the verbal abuse and the physical assault. So the judge, okay, he gets it now. And Janina says, I'm just trying to clarify, and the judge says, thank you. So then we're looking at the allegation that on July 15th, 2020, he witnessed Alice attempt to give the children cocaine. And Ioan says, yes, that is true. That did in fact happen. But again, it predated the filing for the DVRO and it was not part of his request. And he acknowledges that's right. I don't see it here. Also in his supplement from July of 2022. Then in his renewal, he alleged that Alice, on August 5th of 2020, Alice revealed a large bruise on her arm, threatened him that she could make it look like he caused it, and that had also predated the request for the DVRO, but it was not included and also not in the supplement. There is a very loud, like, noise out of the microphone at this point. And it's so loud, it's like right at the beginning of Ioan starting to say his answer. It's so loud that the court reporter like jumps, is like, sorry, you gotta start over. And Alice is like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And so I don't know if she's like mashing the mic, if she hit the mic or something like that, or what exactly it was. But she says, sorry, it was me. And then she sits with her hand to her forehead like this for a little bit. The photo, we got to see that photo, the one that was the exhibit to that particular claim. It's the very greasy looking Alice with the big old bruise on her arm. And Ioan's asked if Alice texted the photo. He doesn't remember, but then he remembers this is a screenshot from a FaceTime conversation. So that is the source of that greasy. Oh, she's in the manky tank. She's all greasy and in the manky tank with the bruise on her arm in that 2020 FaceTime screenshot. Then, in his renewal request, he alleged that Alice provided information directly to Alison Boshoff of the DailyMail. Alison, correct, he does allege that. And he stated in the declaration that they have communications regarding that allegation and that they are attached as Exhibit L. But then we go and look at Exhibit L and there are no communications between Alice and Alison Boshoff there. And so he has to acknowledge, yes, we flipped through Exhibit 12, it seemed, or Exhibit L, and it seems that they are not there. And so in reality, you have no personal knowledge of Alice providing information to Alison, and Ioan has to acknowledge, yes, that's true. He doesn't have personal knowledge. He is just inferring it from things that he does have personal knowledge of. I have a little star over here in my column because this is exactly what we predicted for the defense, isn't it? You can't prove it. You can't prove it. I didn't do it. You can't prove it. And you know, if you can prove it, it was because it was your fault. If it wasn't your fault, it was because, you know, I couldn't help it. It's, you know, there's just always going to be some kind of excuse. But this was in the you can't prove it category. It's not there in your declaration. You don't have personal knowledge. You don't have personal knowledge. And that's the game, isn't it? That's the game. And then after we established, this was like, I don't know why you're listening. Is this helpful? Is this helpful? After you filed the renewal declaration, there was a story in the media about Alice attempting to provide cocaine to the children. Wasn't there? He said, I don't recall. And so then they go to the first page. This exhibit is marked. It's the first page of the DailyMail story. Now the crocodile tears appear. They appear, the Kleenex dabbing at the eyes, and we're starting to hear sniffles. And just The crumpled face. The crumpled face. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? The article dated May 5th, 2025. And the story repeats the cocaine allegation. Yes. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Do you think that's helpful to Alice that you brought that up to the judge? Do you think that's helpful? Do you think that he is going to look at that and think that's Ioan's fault? Because we're back in the same damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, right? You literally just gave him a bunch of shit for not putting stuff in his legal documents. Now you're somehow implying he's at fault for putting it in his legal documents because the press picked it up. Why is the press looking at this case in the first place? Why are they looking at it in the first place? Is it because of the abundance of media interviews and social media drama that Ioan has perpetrated? I kind of think not, is it? He hasn't said a word. He has not said a freaking word in public about any of this. He has said everything he has to say in court. So I don't think this is going to land the way that she maybe wants it to. And the bottom line is now the judge knows about, there's a whole freaking story out there about her giving cocaine to the kids. Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Going back to his renewal declaration, he alleges that Alice claims Bianca posts under anonymous accounts. Yes, he does allege that. And he claims that Alice made fake social media accounts to violate the DVRO. Yes, indeed he does. And specifically, he claimed at Mitzicoooee 89363. Oh, so you mean Mitzicoooee with some numbers at the end, like Bianca testified to yesterday, and you acted like you were so confused about that? You acted like you were so confused about the Mitzicoooee account? She wasn't confused at all. They knew the entire time. They were not talking about the OG Mitzicoooee, which is the Alice Evans Abuses account on Twitter. They knew the whole time. It was Mitzicoooee 89363. And his declaration stated that proof was attached as Exhibit R. And so then we go through those exhibits. They show there's an asterisk with a note that says Alice's email address linked to fake account, but we established that text was added to the document. We cannot on the document read the whole email address because it's, it's got like stars on it. It doesn't spell out the whole thing. And it's also, there's some other parts of the page that are also redacted. Ioan didn't remember who did the redactions, if he did them or who did them. So we looked first at the Dear Abby account. Dear Abby, there was like this whole slew. This was around the time of Ella's DVRO application. I told that story yesterday about Janelle. Janelle was like one of these fake accounts. But there were a whole bunch of them, and they were just kind of there to hang out with Alice's brother, because at this point, Alice had deleted her Twitter. So these are all these fake accounts that are there to hang out with Alice's flying monkeys and her brother. And it ended up, like, I don't know, it ended up dwindling to, like, 4 people that were kind of in their little echo chamber, and they would get together every day and just like say, gross, pointless things about Ioan and Bianca. But Dear Abby was one of them. She asked if the redactions show other email addresses that could be used to obtain a password, and he does not know, or if the redactions show phone numbers. He doesn't know that either. Same Same type of thing for this, for other accounts. We talked about the Apocalypse Soon account, the Juventus 2001 account. These were just all, you know, all these random hateful Twitter accounts that ended up, I think pretty sure like either they got deleted, some of them got deleted, some of them got banned for hateful conduct, like some of them got taken down by Twitter. So at this point, we've gone through these email accounts, and the judge is telling her, you're at 50 minutes of your hour. And Janina says, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I said I wanted an hour and a half. And the judge was like, oh, you want an hour and a half? I think he was like really hoping she would take the cue. Be like, okay, I'll wrap it up. He says, well, you know, we're having our break in 10 minutes. Remember, they were 15 minutes late, and so they were taking their morning break in 10 minutes. Then the Mitzicoooee 832, whatever the numbers were, correct. No documents that you know, on their face you can look at and specifically form that connection. Then we go to the parent-teacher conference. He's asked if it's true. Isn't it true? She asks a lot of isn't it true question. Isn't it correct? Isn't it true that throughout the marriage, Alice was the parent that went to the parent-teacher conferences? No, that's not true, he says. Alice smirks when he says this. She's like smiling, you know. It really took away from those tears that she was flooding, you know, just a little bit ago. In 2018 was Alice who attended the parent-teacher conferences. Ioan did not recall. So we did confirm, we did agree that in 2018, Ioan would travel for several months, or just in general. Ioan would travel for several months at a time. She asked him specifically about 2018, and he said, I would have to look at my diary to be specific about that date. So this is like his go-to. I think that's how he was prepped. That's his go-to for questions about timing. I would have to check my diary to know. But we agreed that generally from 2016 to 2021, he would travel for several months out of the year for his work, and Alice would stay home with the kids. And that was correct. Between the time of the January 2021 separation until the parent-teacher conference that he went to in November of 2022, did he attend any other parent-teacher conference? I have to look at my diary. That's such a good answer. I'd have to look at my diary. I don't know. But they did agree that the children spent most of the time with Alice after the separation. We then go to the October 6, 2022 stipulation and order. This was like to continue a hearing and whatever, but they reached some kind of interim agreements about how visitation was going to look like at this time. And so that agreement was that Yo would have Saturdays between 10 and 4 with the girls. We agreed that for the 2022-2023 school year, he's asked if during that time, either Alice or Gloria was doing all of the school drop-offs. Joe objects that he lacks personal knowledge. The judge says it's also vague and ambiguous, so rephrase it. So instead, he's asked if from the start of 2022 school year through November 17th of 2022, when he went to the parent-teacher conference, did he do drop-offs? He did not. Did he do pickups? He would have to check his diary. I bet he did do some pickups. I don't know, though. November 17th, 2022, the parent-teacher conference was at the 3rd Street Elementary. He agrees he did not provide the school with a copy of the DVRO. Should have done that anytime. Anytime you have a DVRO, certainly against the other parent, you must provide it to the school. Make sure the school knows about it. It's very important information for them to have. Really, the lawyer should have told him to do that. If she didn't, I think this was Ann Kiley back then. If she didn't do that, that should have been done. The DVRO has an exception for brief and physical contact concerning the kids. Now, brief and peaceful communication concerning the kids, I'm pretty sure it has. I don't believe it allows contact. I'd have to go back and double check the language though. But that, I think, is how she's going to try to squeeze in this. I don't know. Is that how she's going to try to justify this parent-teacher conference intrusion? If she just wanted to talk about the kids and somehow barging in was going to be brief and peaceful? I don't know. That seems to be the implication where they're going with that. But we'll have to find out. It's going to probably be part of Alice's testimony. At the time, they both were represented by attorneys in the case. He didn't recall if Alice had an attorney then, but she shows him another document that shows that she had counsel, and we agree she did have an attorney at that time. I don't remember if this is Leon or Marie. Actually, it was after the DVRO. So yeah, this was Marie at this time. He did not coordinate the parent-teacher conference with Alice. He did not send her an Our Family Wizard message that he'd be attending. He doesn't have personal knowledge that Alice knew that he would be at the parent-teacher conference. These are like stupid questions because you never have personal knowledge about what's in another person's mind, you know? And yet we like consistently, frequently have to make findings and conclusions about what is in people's minds in all kinds of different situations in court. Like most commonly in criminal cases, they have mental state requirements. And nobody has personal knowledge. You're always inferring it. There's a saying they teach you in law school very early on: a person intends the logical and probable consequences of their actions. You can infer from somebody's conduct what their intentions are. So, you know, this whole you don't have personal knowledge, it's such a weak point, but it's also, God, it's such a narky point, isn't it? It's such a narky point. You can't prove it. You have no proof. You have no proof. Like the freaking testimony and the inferences aren't proof. I mean, that really is how they think. That really is how they think. At the time of the parent-teacher conference, she asked if the chairs were on the table at that time, and he didn't remember. And the judge says he had observed the video, and that's what it shows. He agrees that that's what it shows. The chairs were on the table. He was seated when Alice came in the room. Yes. I don't know why those things matter. He's asked if isn't it correct? Isn't it correct that Alice immediately left the room? No, that is not correct, he says. No, that is not correct. He did not finish the conference even after she left. And she was at the bottom of the ramp. She was beyond the physical door. She had her back facing towards the door. She was not actually blocking the door itself. And she didn't say anything or make any gestures when he went by. Ioan agreed that he reported the incident to police, but not until March 20th of 2023. He's asked, he didn't recall exactly when, but now he's shown a copy of the report. So then he's asked if he claimed in the report that Alice followed him to the parent-teacher conference. Didn't you claim in the report that Alice followed him to the followed you to the parent-teacher conference? He says, I don't see that here. She's showing him the report. She says, look at this box. Apparently nobody can read the box on paper, but everybody can read the box on the digital copy. So there's this whole thing where Janina like takes her laptop up to the sidebar, and then Joe's up there so that it's not just Janina and Ioan, and they're all like huddled over the laptop. And you knew Alice felt like super left out. She felt like such a freaking third wheel sitting by herself over at her own counsel table, not getting to be part of the crowd over by the laptop. But she was also she was just kind of, you know, stuff is going on that's not interesting, and so she's doing the spaced out, you know, goldfish mouth thing. So after they look at it, Ioan, she asks, repeats the question: didn't you claim in the report that Alice followed you to the pretrial conference? And she directed him to this box, and he said, well, that's not my handwriting. So Janina objects, and she says this is non-responsive. And the judge says that's overruled. This is why we don't admit these reports, because they're hearsay. It's the police officers, like, I don't know if it's I'm sure it's some form that they have. I don't know if it's like an intake form. I don't know if it's the formal report. They always have a gazillion forms and stuff, but it's just whatever form they had, and probably the officer, is filling out the form based on what he's being told. And so it's frequently paraphrased. It's frequently summarized, condensed, whatever. The police officer is not taking a verbatim statement at this point in a report like this from the person who's giving them the information. So probably the police officer that wrote, she followed him because he said, I signed up and she wasn't on the list, and the list was public, and it was the last one for the day. I chose it for that specific reason. So I think she looked at the list and saw I was going to be there and decided to do this little impromptu pop-in. And the police officer just summarized that as following him to the parent-teacher conference. He says, I told them Alice blocked my exit, not the door. Not the door. He did not. They wrote in the report, Alice blocked the door. He says, I told them Alice blocked my exit. And I could so totally see this, because that's just, Ioan is such a formal type of speaker. He's very dignified, very formal. I shouldn't say like very English, because I know he's not English. He's Welsh, but I don't know Welsh enough to know, like, is it similarly formal, kind of like English is? I don't know. But yes, in America, you would not say blocked the exit. You just that would be an uncomfortably formal thing to say. You would say block the door. You certainly wouldn't say block the egress, which is how they were describing it the other day when we saw the video in the ramp and went through all that. They were calling it the egress, which is, I think that's right. That's correct. It's the egress. But no cop would write that down. No. So they wrote he blocked the door. He says, I told them Alice blocked my exit. And Janina at this point kind of wants to go back to it, and she's like saying, well, this report, it is in evidence, Judge. I'm just saying. And the judge just kind of lets that go. Doesn't say anything, doesn't acknowledge it, nothing. We go to our recess. So we have our 10-minute recess, and when we come back, I'm listening to a very interesting conversation between the council that is going on about the scheduling. They're talking about the scheduling. So I've certainly been very confused about like what exactly is going on here. If Alice is testifying next, as we heard, and then that's it for the DVRO, then does that mean we're not hearing from the cop? We're not hearing from Lynn, we're not hearing from Iris Braden, we're not hearing from all these other people, or like how exactly is this set up? So I hear them talking about the scheduling, and Janina had been saying, she was asking if he had scheduled Patrick for tomorrow, and Joe had said yes. And so Patrick is the financial guy. He's the one that he's the forensic accountant that Ioan hired. So he's the one that knows all of the ins and outs of what they had, what got paid to who, what got spent, all of those details, what got disclosed, anything not get disclosed. Yeah, Patrick's going to be the guy that knows that. So Joe said, yeah, he's supposed to be coming in tomorrow. Do you want me to back him up? And Janina asked, well, how much rehab will you have with him? Meaning Ioan, how much rehab do you think you're going to have to do with him? And Joe said, not much. Oh I was like, burn. He doesn't even know. He like wasn't even thinking about that being a burn. He was just being sincere. But I'm like, oh God, that is a burn. You don't even have to rehab him from this cross. This cross is so weak. This cross is flailing so hard. Not even going to take any, not even going to need a lot of time to rehab him. But then they talked about Morales. He says Morales is coming Monday. Morales is coming Monday. This is Detective Morales. This is one of the police officers who investigated the violations of the restraining order when Ioan and Bianca would report them to the police. I think Morales is the one who made the connection with the false the Twitter accounts. So it looks like they are still coming in to testify, and they're just going to be testifying to the effect of Alice's abuse on any requirement that Ioan has to pay spousal under this. It's not 3044, but it's I forget the statute, but it's a very similar statute that basically says if there's domestic violence, then the judge can consider limiting, reducing or eliminating spousal maintenance. And so I got thinking about that, and it does. I think it makes sense. It makes sense to me that that's what they're doing, because the DVRO in many respects is very limited. The DVRO is really just about contact, and stay away, don't communicate except through the appropriate channels, and then these issues with don't do the social media harassment. So that's really the scope of what they have to consider for the DVRO renewal is just, what was his original basis for asking for those restrictions? And then does he have a reason to suggest that without the renewal, she'll continue to do those same things? And so it doesn't necessarily get into a lot of the bigger picture stuff of like the litigation abuse and the financial abuse and that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, I can really see this one both ways, especially with Morales, because the whole SOC accounts go so strongly towards violations, violations of the DVRO. So, but they don't have to show violations of the DVRO to get the renewal. So maybe that's what this is about. They're going to try to show violations of the DVRO to justify not awarding maintenance, not awarding spousal maintenance. Because I have to imagine if they're bringing Morales in, and he's the one that made the connection between Alice and the social media accounts, and so he'll talk about that and how he knows, because Ioan's exhibits, as Janina took care to point out, you can't look at them and say like, yes, this looks like an Alice Evans account, but it doesn't have the phone number and that type of thing on it. So it will have to come from the detective and his personal knowledge. And then I have to assume they've got some, sample tweets from these SOC accounts that they're going to be able to present to show that, yes, they were, once the police officer establishes they were Alice, then we can establish these are the tweets that she was doing to violate the TRO and try to pretend it wasn't her, try to do it surreptitiously. So that I thought was very insightful to just get a little bit more information about how this is gonna play out. We resume the cross-examination with the incident on Beverly Blvd. I'm still not over the cross of Bianca on this. That was so freaking stupid. It was so inept. Like they both, not only did Bianca tell the same story both times, but Bianca and Ioan have told the same story like repeatedly. And then, and then there's the video. It's a crazy thing to be focused on, in my view. But then they went to the sketch that was Exhibit 58. Ioan had drawn a sketch of, where he and Bianca were and where they went, and then where Alice was and where she went, and like what the roads were and all that type of thing. He had drawn this sketch They confirmed that he provided it to the police, but he doesn't recall the date. And he estimates that that was within about a month of the incident. Left it at that. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any follow-up with that. I don't know if I can show you in my notes. You probably can't see it. Bianca. I had to write it down like that because that's how Janina said it. You started a relationship with Bianca in June of 2021. Bianca. It's just not a very, I don't know, it's Bianca. Bianca. Just I don't know. It just was very noticeable the way that she said it. Bianca also traveled to France. He said he'd have to look at the diary. Doesn't believe that it was in June that she went, but it was at some point in the summer. In October 27 of 21 is when he announced the relationship with Bianca on Instagram. It was before the return from France in November 2021 because he would need to see the announcement to be sure about the date. And then after he came back with Bianca, and she immediately moved in with him. So they came back from France together. In January of 2023, he's asked if he called. Isn't it true that he called EB, older daughter Ella, to make sure that she was okay because he believed Alice had been arrested? This is an accusation that Alice made, I think, in her declaration, and Ioan says he does not remember making a call to Ella like that. Alice is doing some chewing mouth movements at this point, chewing movements. He agreed that the custody issues were settled after the DVRO was issued. Janina's asking about the timing and that the custody litigation was just starting at the time when the DVRO was issued. That is what my timeline shows. It was July of 2022 when Ioan first filed his request for custody. And then the order was issued like within a couple weeks. But there were no custody orders at the time of the DVRO, and we established he did not request custody orders as part of the DVRO application. This is just all going back to this argument that if Alice is as bad as you said, why did you leave the kids there? And like, let's forget about the whole, $500,000 about that he spent trying to get access to the kids, trying to be able to have a relationship with them and make the parenting work and stuff like that, and just be able to co-parent, but just this implication that I guess that he's making it up because he would have taken the kids. Like that's the only step you could take under those circumstances. Well, he's going to get an opportunity to explain all this and redirect. This is part of the problem with asking questions that are just there to point out your decision making, because it makes redirect very simple. You just get to say on cross, counsel asked you to confirm that you didn't have custody, you didn't request custody as part of the DVRO application. Why did you not request it? Why did you not do that? So he's always going to get to explain it. The stipulation and order for custody that they ultimately entered into provided for reasonable visitation with the children. Joe objects at this point because he says, I don't represent him on the custody matters. Joe is getting concerned now because Janina's getting into crossing on custody stuff, and Joe isn't the custody lawyer. So like, can you really represent Ioan in this context, dealing with an issue that he's not the counsel on. That's Azita's lane, but Azita is not here. But that objection is overruled. And then Janina asks if it's true that isn't it true you haven't seen the children? Haven't seen the children since March of 2024. The judge wants an offer of proof of the relevance of this because Joe is saying, like, Your Honor, Your Honor, I'm not the custody lawyer. I'm not in a position to be able to advocate here. And Janina says it goes to how things have changed since the restraining order was issued. And so the judge says, for that limited purpose, I'll hear what you have to say and I will give it the weight that I think it warrants, which is his way of saying, I'm not sure this is very relevant. If it is, I'll consider it. If it's not, this doesn't matter. I'm not going to pay any attention to it. So Ioan said he would have to refer to his diary to be accurate about that, but he could confirm that he has not seen the children at all in the last year, which is so sad, isn't it? It's so sad. It's just very sad, very unnecessary, and the just complete complacency that Alice has about that situation, the complete disregard for the importance of a father in a girl's life. Growing up, girl likes to have her daddy around. Completely complacent, like no effort to address it, fix it, just playing the blame game. After Ioan has spent $500,000, paid for therapists, paid for reunification therapy, has done everything. It really just is very sad, very sad. Any communications regarding the children go through counsel. That is part of the stipulation. The judge says it also refers to the Our Family Wizard on the next page, so it's not entirely accurate what you just asked. He's calling out Janina's question as being skewed, kind of misrepresenting things because it was just talking about part of what the order says and leaving out another important part. From September 25, 2025 until last week, Alice represented herself on custody. She did not have a lawyer for that. That was because Janina filed the notice of limited representation after the stipulation, the custody stipulation was entered. And so Alice was her own lawyer for custody, right? Because communications have to be through counsel. So at some point, if Alice could bleed him dry to where he can't afford a lawyer anymore, and Alice doesn't have a lawyer, well, then guess what? Guess what? Communications have to be direct. I think that's on her mind, maybe. So then he's asked, but she did communicate with your counsel, and Joe objects to that for lack of foundation, and the judge says, and hearsay. Sustained. But he did agree that Alice has not reached out to him directly to discuss custody since September of 2025, since the custody stipulation. And that was it for Janina. That was it. That was the end of her cross. That was the end of the cross, that Alice has not reached out to him to discuss custody directly since September of 2025. So even the peaceful communications about the children that she's allowed to do, she didn't do that. Before we get to redirect, the judge has some specific questions of his own. He says, I have to ask these questions because under a new law, there's seems to be kind of constantly new laws in California where domestic violence is concerned. He has to look at whether there are entries through this law enforcement database system. It's called CLETS or CLETS or something, CLETS. I didn't catch the full name of it, but that's the acronym. And it's just got information about restraining orders and possibly violations and things like that. He's saying he received a report from this database. It's like the law now. He gets a report when I guess when a restraining order is issued or requested to be renewed or something like that. So he says he needs some clarifying information that he may it may mean nothing, but he needs some clarifying information on it. And so he wants to know if Ioan has any personal knowledge whether Alice has been known by any other name other than Alice Evans. And he says, no, he doesn't. And has he himself ever been known by any name other than Ioan Gruffudd? And he says, no. And the judge says, to allay everybody's concerns, I think they just sent the wrong report. So it sounds like what happened is that the renewal application triggers this process of having to do some kind of search and provide a report. Probably about like have there been reports of violations or just whatever, convictions, things like that. And for whatever reason, just some different person's report ended up getting sent to him. So he had different names and was like, who the hell are these people? Clarifying it is not our parties, and that was that. And then the other questions he has to ask is whether Ioan has personal knowledge about whether Alice owns any firearms, ammunition, or gun parts, or ever did while they were married. He has no personal knowledge of that. And that is because under current law, if there is a domestic violence restraining order currently in effect against you, you may not own or possess a firearm. You are at least temporarily deprived of your Second Amendment right to self-defense with a gun. So then we got to redirect. So Joe's first takes us back to an exhibit. I had to go back through my notes to clarify what we were talking about here, because I like Joe. He's a very nice guy, but he really does let the exhibits kind of drive everything. And he can see it, they can see it, I can't see it. So he's saying, counsel directed you to read part of this yesterday. What did Alice say in that text before the part that counsel directed you to? I figured out this was the begging for mediation message when Janine was like, isn't it true? Alice begged you to go into mediation, right? And they read the portion about it where it said, we can, while you're gone, we can not do it with the lawyers or just something like that. Try to do it better for the kids. Right before that in the text, Alice talked about wanting to hire some shark litigators. So this was kind of funny too, because Ioan has his lovely accent, his lovely Welsh accent. And so it's shark litigators, and the court reporter and the judge and everybody were like, what? And so then he used his American accent and he said, shark. And it's so funny to me. It's so funny to hear the American accent, because it makes me feel like such a fucking hick having this man who is just so elegant with how he speaks. Doing this accent, doing it well, like I can't argue with it. That is in fact how we sound, and it just sounds so freaking hick compared to the way that the Welsh say it. Shark. So then everybody understood perfectly well what he was talking about. So yeah, right. This is Alice begging for mediation. She's actually threatening. That's what she's doing. She's threatening. I'm going to hire some sharks unless you want to take a little break, do it a different way. Yep. Then we go to the admission that she hired. Alice had hired a private investigator for Bianca. That had come up, I think, on yesterday when Ioan had started his cross. It was one of those things, I think, where it was in an exhibit, or he said it was in an exhibit, but it like wasn't in the right one or something like that. I forget. But anyway, so we go back to the hiring a PI for Bianca, and Joe, of course, knows exactly where that is. It's in a communication from November 15th of 2021, where she told him, I would go into the 4 marriages that she's ruined. Yes, I do have a PI on her. And I seem to remember that text from the DVRO application. I think that was in there. That was one of her rants. He does indeed have a concern that Alice has engendered media coverage of their situation. Asked if he has a basis for his belief whether Alice's denigration of him would be picked up on her social media, would be picked up and published. He said his basis was that she told me as much in messages from the beginning, and I have experienced it firsthand, and so has Bianca. And then shortly after the separation, she entered into a contract with the DailyMail and received about $30,000. We knew she got a big cash payment from the DailyMail. That had come out in the financials. 30 grand and a contract. I would love to see that contract. I wonder if the contract got produced. I wonder if she just told him about the contract. I don't know. I can't wait to hear more about this, because we know Alice is going to be asked about this. Contract with the DailyMail and received about $30,000. We went back to the mail item that was sent to his house that had Alice's name on it. Alice having her mail sent to his new house that she's not supposed to know where it is. And he had thought more about the redactions, and the one that was over Alice's name, he said it was his best recollection, that the reason why he redacted it was that it seemed to look like an account number. Another one of the statements he had made in a declaration, that Alice had threatened on our family wizard that the paparazzi would be around, look out. And came out on cross. You look at the exhibit and it's not in that exhibit. Well, it's somewhere else. Here it is. So they find it, and there was a minute here where he said it's an exhibit 64. And they're looking for it, and he says, sorry, that's the wrong one. And Joe prompts him, perhaps it's exhibit 63. Janina objects to leading on this one, and the judge says, this is proper leading. This one is like helpful. Thank you for doing that. It's okay to draw the witness's attention to a specific exhibit. That's okay to be leading on. And so we get this one into evidence too, because it had an effect on him. He was upset and angry that she was pursuing this false poverty narrative, making comments about living in the street. So that was the threat that the paparazzi would be around. In 2023, Alice had not filed a request for child support. He paid spousal far in excess of what the premarital agreement required from 2021 to 2023, and then entered a stipulation to pay maintenance and support in 2023. I was hoping, I mentioned this yesterday, because remember Janina asked that very specifically worded question. You didn't pay her monthly. You didn't make her monthly payments. I really wanted them to spell out, because I gave her freaking $110,000 of my separate property from the house settlement, and that was supposed to last her for a year, and bitch ran through it, whatever she spends her money on. Like, you look at her finances, you can't even tell, where is this going? Where is this going? It's like, it's just going on random crap. But they didn't get that specific. They just said paid spousal far in excess of what the premarital agreement required. This is really not going to matter so much for this part anyway. It doesn't have really anything to do with the DVRO or the violation. This is going to go far more to the just all the financial issues. So I would expect that's going to be Patrick's wheelhouse when he finally comes in and testifies. He's the one that will get into the specifics. But for Ioan, it's just enough that he paid far in excess of what the premarital agreement required from 2021 to 2023. And so to the extent he didn't pay child support, it's encompassed in what he overpaid in the maintenance. It's not like he owes her anything or deprived her of anything that she was legally entitled to, even though she hadn't asked for it at this point in time. The stipulation to pay the maintenance and support, he complied with it to the letter. Then we get to let's see, a tweet. I think it's a tweet on, or maybe it was a correspondence. I can't remember now. October 26th of 2023. It must have been a tweet or a communication or something, because he was asked about how it made him feel. It made him very upset and angry. And the reason why is because it referred to health insurance. And so this came up with Janina's cross as well, right? She had argued, well, you know, it's here in the order, you have an obligation to provide health insurance to Alice. So we get the health insurance story. And the health insurance story was that he had made attempts via counsel to get Alice's cooperation to sign up for the insurance I had lined up for her and agreed to pay for. This I see now. This was a message or something, but it had also involved a threat to publish emails with Ann Kiley, his first attorney. And he said he found that to be, you know, a threat and also a violation of the DVRO. So this must have been the old our family wizard or something like that, because it wasn't the peaceful, you know, wasn't the peaceful communication. So she sent some kind of message about you know, health insurance that pissed him off, because he's like, bitch, I've been balls in your court. I ain't gonna chase you. I've done what I needed to do. If you're not going to cooperate, you got to do your part. Nobody can force health insurance on you. You might have to like sign some papers or do a physical or something like that. We have our first exhibit out of book 5. They're 5. These are like 3-inch 3-ring binders, okay, that contain the trial exhibits. First time I've heard of book 5. Okay, book 5, just from the plaintiff, just from Ioan. Okay, so much stuff they have, but obviously not all of it is coming in. This is meet and confer correspondence. Alice is gazing at herself in the plexiglass at this point. And while they're talking about the meet and confer correspondence, what's going on? Same thing as yesterday. Alice is digging around in her bag and pops at least one, might have been 2 little pills in her mouth, little pill-looking things in her mouth, and then swigs the water. Yep, doing that again. So this meet and confer correspondence reflects his efforts to get Alice health insurance. Alice did not cooperate with those efforts. And the reason why Joe wants him to look at these letters is because the letters are sent in November of 2023 and September of 2024. These are letters trying to get her to cooperate with the health insurance while she is blaming him for not giving her health insurance. And he is trying to do it this entire time. Isn't that exactly what you would expect? Joe asked him, what do you make of that 1-year delay? It was objected to and that was sustained. So how long did you try to get Alice to cooperate? A year or more. A year or more he spent, and still gets blamed. And still gets blamed. He offers this meet and confer correspondence into evidence, but it is objected to as cumulative and also hearsay, and the judge sustains that and says it's enough. His testimony is in evidence. Then we move on to Alice's claim that she was evicted from her previous apartment. And do you think it was your fault that Alice had to downsize? That is objected to as irrelevant, ambiguous, and the judge says, and compound, sustained as to all three. And then he says that might be relevant on the request for orders, but not here. So this now is also, I think, reiterating sort of where the dividing line is between the, I don't know exactly where it is, but the judge seems to have a pretty clear idea that some limited universe of issues is relevant to the DVRO application, the renewal application, and then a much broader universe of issues is relevant to, does he have to pay her support? Because that's the RFO and her request to increase her maintenance is part of what they are having to resolve in this trial. So her downsizing, the eviction, all that stuff. The judge is saying, I think it's relevant to the RFO. Now, Joe could have pushed back because this goes to the smear campaign. This goes to all of the public media stuff she was doing under her own name. My husband left us destitute, and he just needs to co-sign, and just all the stuff that she was saying. And Ioan's position had been, this is not his fault. He has paid her more than what she is entitled to. She's just using it as an opportunity to blame him and smear him. And so it is continuing to be violative of the restraining order. But Joe really didn't push back on that. He just went ahead and let it go. I don't know that they need it like they do. They do certainly have enough. It's just that some of these things that are more recent feels like it would be kind of helpful to have substantiated. At the same time, look, when the judge is telling you I'm not interested, you don't necessarily argue with him about that. So so then we go back to his DVRO application, the original one. And Joe asked, did you intend to include every incident of abuse in your DVRO? And Ioan says, no, I did not. Why not? Why not? Ioan says, well, it was cumulative. I didn't need it. And I had been previously threatened by Alice that if I were to discuss these things, that she would reveal things that had happened during the marriage. Janina moves to strike this as non-responsive, and that is overruled. And then he's asked, so why did you put it in the renewal application? And he says, because I wanted to respond to the posts and the violations that Alice had done since the DVRO. So he's bringing these up because of allegations that she had made since the DVRO. And that largely, I think, is the affair narrative. That's how he kind of described it in his application itself, the renewal application itself. Alice had engaged in this extended, protracted campaign of accusing him and Bianca of the 3-year affair, and that's why the marriage ended. And Bianca stole her husband and is a home wrecker and all of that type of thing. And so Ioan filed the renewal application to show that that's not true. You want to make a public thing about why our marriage broke up? Here's why it broke up, bitch. Here's why it broke up. Because of your abusive ass. As for the cocaine incident, why not include that in the original application? He didn't need it. He was responding to social media posts that she had made. She had accused him of using cocaine. And she threatened that if I talked about this, she would allege I abused the children in that way. We all knew that was coming. We all knew that was coming. 3 years ago, I made videos talking about this. Like, this was so not a surprise. Definitely not a surprise to me. Of course she would threaten that. Of course she would threaten that. And of course that was the plan. And of course Ioan knew that. And that's why he had to have the visit supervisors for so long, especially after Alice started making those comments. She made that comment to Ella about, please tell me if daddy does anything creepy or weird with you. Like, the setup was so obvious. And the problem is that these are children, and children are very easily manipulated. Children do not have, I mean, none of us have particularly good fixed memories. It's just not how memory works. Memory is extremely flawed and extremely fluid. But children, particularly so, they can be very, very malleable with their memories. So this is so extremely disturbing because I've had to handle these situations in court when you have a parent that is alienating a child from the other parent, and the child fabricates an allegation of abuse like this. And yeah, it's damaging. It's damaging to my client. It's damaging to the parent, but it is so damaging to that child. It is so damaging to that child. That child is either traumatized by something that never happened, but they have a memory of it and a response to it and have to process it and all of those types of things as if it did when it didn't. Or the child lives with the knowledge that they made it up. These are so damaging to the kids. I will never forget this one kid. I'll never forget this one kid. Oh, it had been an extremely hostile breakup going on for a long time. And there were accusations that escalated and escalated and escalated. I mean, literally, you could write the script. It started off that daddy's too strict, and daddy, keeps us in our room to do our homework, doesn't let us out of our room until our homework is done. Then it escalates to, daddy's mean and yells at us. And then it escalates to, oh, and also daddy beats us. And then finally, like months later, it escalates to daddy's done this thing. And I remember it happened. My client's already been criminally charged. Okay. He's been charged with, he's just been charged with regular child abuse based on these accusations. And so I'm interviewing the child about this based on the criminal charge, based on the accusation of physical abuse. And the child, for the first time, comes out with this accusation that, oh yeah, and daddy also did these other things. And the thing that stands out to me was the child was very just angry. The child was like hostile. The child was angry. And the child was just carrying a burden. It's very much, it's such a similar situation to what we're looking at here, where the child is been made responsible for the emotions of the parent. And so the child is angry and hostile to anything that threatens the equanimity of that parent. And in that case, in this case, it was my client and me by virtue of being that guy's lawyer. So, I've also had plenty of opportunities to interview kids who legitimately have been abused. Yeah, very, very, very different. So it's just, everybody saw this coming years ago, that she would put her children through something like this. She would harm them in this way for the sake of her revenge. We saw this Medea bullshit. And nothing, nobody did anything about it. But now it's finally out there. Then the same thing about the bruise in the arm, responding. He put it in because he was responding to public social media posts about him. And so there's some other exhibit to part of his application where he's sourcing it to an email from Alice to Linda Blank. So we got Lynn Blank is kind of, coming in collaterally. She sent it to Ioan in approximately April of 2024. And it made him shocked and devastated because Alice was talking about threatening that she wants to drag the divorce out as long as possible. And so Bianca would have issues getting her green card, and also threatening that she's got enough evidence against me that it will completely ruin me. This, I'm pretty sure, was one of the emails that was attached to the renewal application. So the judge interjects at this point. He wants some context. Who is Linda Blank? We want some context. Who is Linda Blank? Ioan describes her as a lady who, along with Deborah Survey, were running this Facebook fan account. So the judge wants to clarify. She sent him this message in April of 2024. Yes, the date of the message is November 18th of 2021. So it's 2.5 years later that she sent it. And Yo says, yes. Why didn't you receive it contemporaneously? The judge wants to know. And Ioan explains that at the time, Linda and Deborah were conducting this social media campaign on Alice's behalf and had been directed by her to carry it out. Janina starts to come up and object, but just as she's speaking, the judge has another question. So why did you receive it in 2024? So she just stops. Judge wants to hear this, honey. I don't know if it's a good idea to object to the judge's questioning. Pretty sure he's gonna ask the questions he thinks is appropriate. So why did he receive it in 2024? Ioan explains that Linda had a change of heart. She felt guilty and ashamed about what she had done and felt that she had been manipulated by Alice. The judge asked if the 2021 date had been, if he'd done anything to independently validate that date of that communication. And Ioan said no, he did not. The judge wanted to know if the TRO was pending at that time, and Ioan says no, he believes it was not until 2022, because this was before the TRO, which was in February of 2022, was filed. Joe at this point explains Linda Blank is a witness. Linda Blank is a witness. So this is different from the impression I had gotten the other day that Linda Blank was no longer going to testify. Maybe they must have meant she's not going to testify as part of the DVRO renewal. She's not going to testify that day. But Joe saying Linda Blank is a witness sounds to me like Linda Blank is still going to testify. But she is perhaps only going to testify now as to the spousal maintenance issue. Interesting. Judge says, I understand. I saw her name. I just, wanted the clarification. So then we go to Alison Boshoff. We have Exhibit 94 is marked. This is a social media post that Alice made. Not sure exactly when, sometime he thought between mid-2023 and 2024. I think it was earlier than that because I'm pretty sure this was already, in fact, I know the photo was already out there when Ella filed her request for the restraining order, and that was in May of 2023. Why do I know that? Because I posted it on Alison Boshoff's timeline. When Alison Boshoff got the copy of Ella's filings for the DVRO before they were publicly available. So this is the social media post. It's the picture of Alison and the picture of Alice, and Alice posted this on her Instagram. Love this person. She's so wonderful. What a bestie. So Janina objects to this one as the lack of foundation. The judge says, I need to know what the relevance is. I want an offer of proof. Joe says, I am responding to cross-examination on the relationship between Alice and Alison Boshoff, a writer for the Daily Mail. Janina says, well, I wasn't really questioning the relationship. He alleged in the DVRO 7, the application, the renewal application, that she was providing confidential or non-public information to Boshoff. So the judge sustains that, but without prejudice. He just says, I don't really see that it's relevant at this time, but if it comes together somehow, you can try it again. So that photo is not in evidence, that post. Then we have another exhibit that's marked, which is an email from Alice that Ioan received from Linda Blank. Another email. And Alison Boshoff is CC'd on this email. Page 2 of this exhibit is an article by Alison Boshoff that is based on the email Alice sent about a GoFundMe that she was setting up. So she set up the GoFundMe, she emailed Lynn, and she CC'd Alison Boshoff, and then lo and behold, there's a Daily Mail article about it. Janina objects to this one as no foundation and speculation about how, what the article was based on. The judge overruled that. And Ioan explains the article came out almost immediately after the email. The email was June 18th of 2022, and the article came out on June 20th of 2022. So he offers this email as well. Janina objects to the document. And so the judge says, is your client denying the relationship with Alison Boshoff? And she says no. And the judge says, does she deny that she entered into a contract for $30,000 with the Daily Mail? Asking the important questions. And Janina really pauses for a minute. And then she said, for one article, she says, for one article. Now I really want to see this contract, because I don't believe for a second she's getting paid 30 grand for one article. I don't believe that for a second. And it wasn't a very good article. We've seen this article. I've seen this article. It's I don't remember when exactly it was, but it wasn't super long after the separation, and it was just her. I was so sad, and this has been my best friend. And this is the one where she talks about their fight in August, when he told her he didn't love her anymore, because she asked him, don't you love me anymore? Do you still love me? No, Alice, he does not love you anymore. He does not love your abusive ass. So no, I'm not buying. That's a $30,000 article. Not buying that for a second. For somebody with no resume, she doesn't have publications like this. She has no. No, I would totally believe that this was in the way of a provide us content type of agreement. But I do not believe for a second that that content was limited to one article. In fact, I think this would go a long way to explaining why a British tabloid in which there are significant protections about publishing images of underage children. I think it would go a long way to explaining why they are routinely, repeatedly publishing photos of Alice with her minor children. Just a little inference I'm making from the circumstances. But Janina represents, it was for one article. The judge sustains it on relevance at this time, but he says you can certainly ask Alice about this. We're getting closer and closer to asking Alice about all kinds of things. Then we go back to Mitzicoooee, the Mitzicoooee with the numbers. Who linked that account with Alice? Ioan says that was Detective Jose Morales. He so informed you. Objection is hearsay. That was overruled. I think it technically was hearsay. I can't think of a good non-hearsay exception. I mean, it is being offered for the truth. It's not just being offered to show the impact on him. It is being offered for the truth that Alice was in fact linked with that account. I don't know, but the judge is letting it in, so okay. And he says yes, and then Joe says Morales will be here Monday, and the judge says it's neither here nor there. I read the page that you showed me, so I see what's there. Joe asked if he did any investigation of his own of the accounts. The judge at this point imposes his own 352, right? It's not relevant enough to be worth my time. He says, this is getting into, he says, I'm interjecting this in at this point because this is getting close to, dangerously close to an area where people who are protected by DVROs are being asked to give up their movements or their work product or things like that, and you should not tread there. So I think what he was getting at was, Joe, don't open this door because, you know, Janina gets to ask follow-up. And so you need to be careful about asking about the methods that he is using to verify, you know, Alice's behavior here. So a little bit of a bro move by the judge there in some ways. We go back to the parent-teacher conference, confirm that he signed up for the last conference of the day. Based on his review of the sign-up sheet, Alice was not signed up at all. Janina objected to that as asked and answered. That was overruled, and he confirmed that he still has an unredacted copy of that sign-up sheet. And that was the end of redirect. So on recross then, we had a brief recross. We go back to, again, the mail that Alice had sent to his house. And we confirm, yes, what he, in this part, what he, above Alice's name, redacted was what he believed was an account number. But there was another part on the front of the envelope that he did not remember what it was. It's one of those envelopes that has a window, and then the document has, you know, the address and the information on it. So you can see all that through the window, which would make sense why it would have an account number and stuff on it. So she asked what was in the envelope. He says, I didn't open it. He didn't even open it. Then we go back to the health insurance issue. And she asks after, September 16th of 2024. Isn't it true you were informed that Alice contacted a Mr. Frankfather to try to obtain health insurance? And Ioan says, don't recall. Oh, so a year after he's been working on getting you health insurance, you decided to go pursue some other health insurance, and that's supposed to be his problem, and that's your theory of victimhood and all of this? It's what it sounds like. We go back to Linda Blank, confirmed that she managed what Janina refers to as his Facebook fan club from 2016 through at least the date of separation. And Ioan says he couldn't testify to the exact time frame, but they did run that fan club. We go back to one of the emails, the one about the GoFundMe campaign that Lynn forwarded, and establish GoFundMe campaigns are available publicly, and also that Alice asked if Alice publicly posted it to her social media on June 18th of 2022, and Ioan says he doesn't recall that. That was the end. That was the end of the recross, and that was the end of the day. We finished finished a little bit early, about it was 11:43. The court told us very specifically, 11:43. Do you want to get started on 17 minutes worth of stuff today, or shall we just pick it up tomorrow at 8:30? We're going to pick it up tomorrow. So that means that contrary to my initial kind of prediction about how things were going to work out from a timing standpoint, I thought Alice was going to get to start today and kind of get a feel for it and get her headlines, get her story, whatever coverage is going to be out there about the early part of her testimony. And then she has time to go back home and scheme and think about, what she's going to do better, differently, just whatever. And then carry all that out on day 2. No, she's going to be stuck. She's going to be stuck with one day, and it's going to be a very long day. It's going to be a long day. This is going to require a lot of stamina from Alice here. And I don't know how well that's going to go. We'll have to see. Now, the judge has already signaled, apparently at the pretrial conference, because they referred to it here, he doesn't think that Alice needs to say much or really should be saying much, because Janina initially requested, I want to say, an hour and a half or maybe a couple hours for Alice to testify when he asked about the time frame she expected for that. And he said something to the effect of, you're not gonna, no, no, you're not gonna take that much time. And so then Janina said, okay, well then like 30 minutes. And it makes sense to me because, like, what are you really, you're not relitigating the DVRO, right? So it's really just about his fear. He can testify to his subjective fear. You can, to some extent, challenge the reasonableness of his fear, but that's really more an issue for argument. That's not so much an issue for testimony. That's for you to say, here's what he said made him afraid. That's not a reasonable reaction. So there might be like a few things around the edges that there would be factual disputes about. Did this or did this not happen? But there's such a volume of things here. All of these different posts, all of these different direct communications, indirect communications, emails, etc. That it's really not clear to me that there is going to be value in trying to work through all of these and like rebut them all, if you even could. And so the real effort in this case needs to be on that second Richie factor, the changed circumstances. Why, Alice? Why are things so different now? How have you changed? And how have you demonstrated a commitment to this change? because nothing that we're seeing through this court process is really manifesting any kind of changed attitude. It's really a lot of, more of the same. More blaming, more blame shifting, more denying, more, haha, you can't prove it stuff that we knew she was going to do stuff like that. So she's going to have a real good story, and then she's going to have to maintain that story on cross-examination in the face of just a mountain of what she has done publicly, and just that we even know of. Who knows what she's done that we don't. We, the public, have yet to even hear about. They don't have to. You guys remember in the Karen Reed trial when there was the whole thing about Judge Bev made them turn over the rebuttal evidence, and then that's how Jen McCabe got tipped off about that the feds had pulled her location records and knew that she had gone to Officer Lank's house the next day after John died and spent like an hour there. That's how they knew. And so she got to pre-butt that and get out ahead of that. And it took the air out of Alan Jackson's impeachment, because, if she didn't know that, she was going to lie about it, and then he was going to be able to impeach her with it. That is not normal. That is not normal. Normally, you don't have to show your hands on your rebuttal evidence. You have to disclose for, discovery and trial and stuff like that, anything that you intend to use in your case in chief. But the rebuttal case, you're not required to disclose that because that's not in your control, and it's really not predictable. You don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what you might need to rebut or not. So, yeah, I'm suspicious that there might be some traps sprung, some things we haven't seen. I don't know. We'll see. Some things waiting to rebut claims that Alice might make. It's going to be very interesting to see, because it will be a surprise to her. And she's bluffed. She's bluffed a long way so far. Her bluff has carried her a long way through this process. But it's put up or shut up time now. And, gonna have to show your cards. Gonna have to turn them over. Gonna have to turn them over. We're past the river now. Time to see what you're holding. So it's gonna be a very interesting day tomorrow. All Alice, all day. And no break, no time to regroup, think about it, re-strategize, scheme, scroll through her thing, looking, desperately for something to help her. Nope, she's gonna have to get it one and done. And so I think that has turned out to be much more advantageous to Ioan. He got a little bit of advantage having his direct and his cross broken up and having the breaks in between. He's had, two breaks. His testimony has gone over 3 days. He's had 2 breaks to regroup and think about things and stuff like that. But that is a little bit countered by the fact that the opposing attorney also has that time to regroup and replan and go back and check the exhibits and go back through his testimony. And is there anything else that I want to go into and stuff like that. So yeah, she's going to have a lunch break, and that's it, or the 10 minutes in the morning and the lunch and the 10 minutes in the afternoon. Like, that's really not an awful lot of time to get your shit together. We'll see. we'll see. So yeah, tomorrow's going to be a big one. You are not going to want to miss this. Not going to want to miss it. I did get my task done this afternoon with the early day that I was hoping to, which was I hunted down that form, that LA Superior Court form, to request the exhibits, and I waited in the family court clerk line for like an hour to be able to get it filed. So it is on its way up to the judge. We will see what comes of that. But I did make a request to be able to inspect and or copy the exhibits. If I'm able to copy them, I will certainly do so. And yes, I will share them. They are public records. They are not confidential. The only reason I would be entitled to them is because anybody is entitled to them. So don't really expect an immediate answer, but I don't know. We'll see. The judge might say something from the bench. We'll just have to see how that goes. But the request has been formally lodged, as the judge indicated he wanted it done. So, yeah, man, tomorrow I'm gonna need to get some rest. I'm gonna need to get some rest because I'm gonna need to be alert. I'm gonna need to be alert tomorrow. I was actually thinking, I was really thinking, maybe I should abandon the yellow pads for tomorrow and bring the laptop, just because, you know, I can type. Would I get more in? It's just, it's not my system, and so it would be a change. I'm like, you don't change your game like when you're going to the playoffs, you know, you stick with what works. So I don't think I'm going to change, but I'm expecting a performance. I'm expecting a performance, and then I'm expecting a you know, dramatic collapse on the cross-examination. I'm very envious of Joe, you know. How fun a cross-examination like this, where you just have so much to work with, and it's all her own words. That's the thing. That's been from day one what was going to be Alice's white whale was her own big fucking mouth, because she just couldn't not spew every thought in her mind all over Twitter for likes. She just had to say everything, regardless of whether it was true and regardless of whether it was consistent with anything she had ever said before. So, like, pick a narrative. She's said it at some point, and there will be documentation to support that in her own words. I don't know how she's gonna deal with that. Surely they have a strategy. Surely Janina has helped her game plan. How do I deal with all this bullshit that I've said before? But surprises, are there surprises? I don't know. If there are surprises to Alice, they will also be surprises to Janina, so you can only prep for what you know is coming. Guys, let's see what y'all have been thinking. Bluebell 1, thank you for all you do, Andrea. Here's a little something for the long walk to get coffee in the AM. Thank you so much, Bluebell. It is a very long walk to get coffee. I did take a different route today, and I did find that there was at least an option for 7-Eleven coffee on this route. So that will maybe help, but otherwise there's really no coffee until you're I'm all the way to the courthouse. But even then, I did have one this morning, so it was very, very helpful. I appreciate that so much, and that will certainly help me be alert and attuned tomorrow. Lola the Good Dog 26, hypothetically, what if Alice was hospitalized or arrested? Would Ioan automatically have temporary full custody of the kids? I don't see this ending well. If Alice is hospitalized or arrested, then chances are the first thing that is going to happen is they're going to try to reach him and you know, find out if he is able to take custody of the kids. But it's likely that, you know, CPS would be contacted or would be involved. and would have to make, you know, some kind of arrangement for the safety of the kids. No, he wouldn't automatically have temporary full custody, because it would always just depend on what is in the best interest of the children. And if it's not in the best interest of the children for him to be their shelter, then he wouldn't be. But yeah, I don't like this thought. I really don't. You know, I was thinking this question was going to go in the line of like, what's going to happen to the trial? Would the trial be continued? Would it be a way to delay it and stuff like that? And I was like, well, you know, maybe, but you don't necessarily have to appear at a civil trial. Then again, he does have her named as a witness, but if he doesn't call her, you know, it's fine. You can waive it. She just effectively like default. I thought this was kind of where that was going to go, but no, with the kids, I mean, the reality is, I think the first thing that would happen is, you know, police, CPS, social worker. If it's like at the hospital, if she's arrested, it's police. They're going to get CPS involved. If it's a social worker at the hospital, probably the same. And I would expect eventually someone's going to get in contact with Ioan, but a lot would depend on the girls too. You know, what would they say? So in a situation like this, say, you know, you're out shopping and you have a heart incident and you're taken to the hospital and your kids are there and the kids are taken to the hospital. What happens? The hospital, you know, talks to the kids. Do you have anybody who can come pick you up? Do you have, you know, is your dad gonna, you know, be able to come get you, kind of thing? And so it might depend on what the girls say. If the girls say no, then they'll just go straight to CPS. If the girls say, well, you know, maybe, then they would, you know, get his contact information and they'd contact him and they'd feel it out. But I would expect him to be hesitant about a situation like that. But yeah, I just don't know. It's not a good situation. I'm with you. I don't see it ending well either. Kate Knoll, thanks for doing the Lord's work, Kate. Thank you, Kate. I'm very lucky and blessed. I really am. I have such a wonderful life that I get to do this fun stuff that I find so interesting. And I really am. It's wonderful that you guys find it so interesting too. And that lets me go somewhere cool and watch a trial. Like, what could be more fun? It's pretty awesome. So thank all of you for helping me make that possible. Lola the Good Dog 26, Alice needs to go to the Jen McCabe trial prep class. Alice doesn't have Jen's smarts. Jen was very, very canny. Jen is smart like a fox, right? Jen was very cunning. Alice is more reptilian. You know, she doesn't have like the forebrain. She doesn't have the long term. I said this a long time ago. Alice does not have long-term thinking. And we're seeing that play out right now. You know, the lack of her ability to really strategize and plan and carry something out that isn't more than just, you know, yeah, short-term, couple of days type of situation. Jen can play a long game, right? Jen can play a long game. Jen can think down the road quite a bit and put the pieces together to build a plan. I don't think Alice can do that. I don't think she has that skill. And at this point, she doesn't have, you know, part of Jen's skill was the organizing all of the people, and Alice just doesn't have the network that she did. The only influence she really has at this point is those kids. And I will tell you, I have been waiting to see, is she going to try to drag those kids into this? I think even she knows that's a bridge too far. The judge is not going to allow that. The judge is not going to be impressed by that. But yeah, who knows? I mean, that's really all that she can kind of triangulate and manipulate at this point. Jen had a much broader reach. So Yeah, she can dream. She can dream of being at Jim McCabe's level, but don't think that's going to happen. Well, guys, I'm going to need some kind of poll for tomorrow. What are we predicting? What do we think this is going to be like? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? How long before the fake tears? Are the tears going to have actual water? Amber couldn't like squeeze out the fluid. I don't know if Alice is a better actress in that regard or not. Is she gonna just be like patting her, rubbing her forehead and her chin with the Kleenex? I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll think about it overnight. I'll see if I can think of a fun poll for us to have as we take in the Alice show. Yeah, she told us a long time ago how much she had to say and how much proof she had, and I sure am ready. Sure am ready to see it. I would expect she's pretty excited about it too. I would expect that if she has what she says she has. So, guys, I'm gonna check out. I'm gonna get myself some sleep. Get myself some nice coffee in the morning. Thank you again, Bluebell. That was very kind of you. And I hope it's a good day. That's just all. I hope it's a good day. I hope it's a good day for everyone, regardless of whether it's a good day for Alice or not. Don't want to invest too heavily in the Schadenfreude. But I know this is what I've been waiting for. I know this is what so many of you have been waiting for. Just to see her have to answer for some of what she's done. See her be exposed for what she is and what she does. So I'm hopeful. I'm afraid to hope, but I'm hopeful. And I do have a lot of confidence in Joe's ability to pull it off. He's got the goods. It's really all you need is you just need the material. Material like he has, anybody should be able to pull off this cross. So but I would like to see it. I would like to see it sting a little. So all right, guys, I'm going to wish you all sweet dreams. Thank you all very much for joining me. Tomorrow is a full day again, so it'll be the 7 o'clock, and then of course no court on Friday, so nothing but the recriminations after our full day of Alice, and we'll see where we end up. You can check Twitter for the major updates. I'll continue to try to share those, but otherwise, guys, see you here tomorrow night. Expect to have quite a story to tell. Take care.